All those you teach, you change.
All those you change, change you.
The only lasting truth is change. We
are Earthseed.
Good evening. My name is Pandora Thomas.
And my name is Zakiya Harris. Our work that we want to share with you tonight is based on the vision of Sankofa. Sankofa is a Ghanaian principle rooted in the belief that the past serves as a guide to the future. It's from the awareness that we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors that we birth the vision of Earthseed, which for us is about reconnecting communities of color to the earth and allowing and inspiring the transformation of communities. And we must credit our ancestor, Octavia Butler, who coined the name Earthseed.
We are honored to have been invited to share this stage with other active creators in American K-12 education. And we know that, like us, all of you wake up every morning thinking of new ways to inspire your students, who we believe are not only the next generation, but the now generation. So how many of you are really passionate about something? Let me see a show of hands. Something in your life that really sparks passion, and you've tried to integrate that passion into your lives. Well, Zakiya and myself have also experienced that in our teaching. We're actually here to share with you strategies that we found that have enabled us to share our love of young people and the love of the earth in our work. So my story is actually rooted in my parents, Francis and Lawrence Thomas, may he rest in peace, who raised me with a love of fishing and a love of indoor plants. We used to fish on the small lakes in western Pennsylvania, and my living room actually looked like a jungle because of all the indoor plants that my mother had. Now, they never called themselves environmentalists. You didn't hear the word environmentalist in our home, but I saw how much they cared about the earth in their actions. This stayed with me, and as I went on to college, I found myself joining different environmental organizations, where, interestingly enough, I would be the only African-American student in those organizations. This wasn't a problem to me, because I knew that I was doing what I loved. What really started me thinking was when I wanted to integrate my love of working with the environmental organizations with the African-American student organizations. They were two different groups of people. They spoke different. They had different activities they did. They shared different stories. They both spoke to me, but didn't speak to each other. I remember thinking back then that it couldn't be a mistake that I was so passionate about my community and so passionate about the earth and wanted to see both of them healthy. I also remember when friends in the environmental organization would say to me, Pandora, why don't African Americans care about the environment? I don't know if any of you ever heard or asked that question, but I knew deep in my core that that wasn't true. Not only do we care about the environment, but we also care about many other things that we have to deal with daily. So I knew right then that there were assumptions that were made that I would have to change. When I decided to serve as an educator, I also remember hearing the same kind of assumptions made about young people, specifically young people from diverse communities. They don't care about this and they don't care about that, but the educators or the adults would never actually ask the young people what they cared about. That was also another moment that I knew that I couldn't let myself make those assumptions without engaging young people, without engaging the communities. All of these experiences have led me to the lens that I use in my work, which is rooted in acknowledging my own validity and my own awareness and expertise. And we integrate this into our work. When we step into a room full of people and young people, we validate your experiences and your expertise in your experiences. We're our own experts of our own stories.
My journey to this work started when I became a vegetarian about 11 years ago. And as I began to learn more and more about my personal health, about consumption, about energy use, I also started thinking about my lifestyle and how it was impacting the planet. And when I began to get a little deeper and really take a look at my community, I soon learned that my community was actually bearing the brunt of environmental issues through lack of access to healthy food, through living in some of the most polluted and toxic areas of the city, and home to the highest rates of asthma, cancer, and diabetes in the community. And so I got activated. I got passionate, charged up, fired up, and I was committed that I was going to share this work and this newfound knowledge with the young people that I worked with every day. But before I was able to take a step forward, I had to first take a step backward. I had to do an assessment of myself and really ask myself how I was showing up in the classroom. Was I compartmentalizing aspects of my being, aspects of my passion, or was I truly able to integrate the fact that I'm a mother to a beautiful 4.5-year-old daughter, that I'm an artist, that I'm an educator, that I'm someone who identifies with being part of the hip-hop generation, and yes, I love the earth too. And so when I began to bring this work into the classroom, I met a lot of disconnects between the worlds in the same way. So it was acceptable for me to talk about police brutality as a social justice issue, but not as an environmental justice issue. It was okay for me to say young people need snacks and after-school programs, but it wasn't okay for me to demand that those snacks be organic. It was okay to talk about global climate change and how it was impacting sea levels or polar bears, but it wasn't okay for me to talk about how it was impacting the lives of the students that I worked with in their very own neighborhoods. And so what I found was that there was a huge disconnect between the intersections between the lives that my young people were living with broader environmental issues. For our work to truly be transformative, it was going to have to be deeper than planting a garden or memorizing some statistics about rising CO2. We were going to have to facilitate a process of remembrance and of reconnection where our young people see themselves as part of the earth. And so for us, our work is about empowering young people not to see themselves as environmental victims, but to see themselves as solutionaries to address the very environmental issues that they face each and every day. And so, from that place, we want to share with you the work of one of our young people and her story, because this is really about the young people's lives that we touch each and every day. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Miss Idrina Black, a person who's had the opportunity to work with us for the last couple of years at a wonderful organization that you're going to learn more about. Thank you.
This is my grandma when she was young. Back in the day, she was a fox. I appreciate my grandmother for all the knowledge she put in me. All the stuff that she's ever told me, like when she always told me I could do anything I wanted to do, be anything I wanted to be. Everything positive came from her. What makes me want to work in the community or better other people is because you don't really have too many people that do that in our neighborhood. To me, I do it because I feel like I didn't have people that stepped up to, introduce me to certain things in Hunters Point. My name is Idrina Black. I'm 21 years old. Well, I work for Grind for the Green, which is a youth-led organization. We put different events on for kids to try to get into the green movement. We basically had kids step outside of their box and rap about going green. We had a concert that was ran by the solar power, just meaning like the wind and the sun. One of my trainings, we looked at different like little slideshows about what's going on in our communities, or like just period, like how they show the polar bears not having enough ice, or the toxic triangle from Richmond to Frisco to Oakland. We have farmers markets instead of going to the corner stores all the time that we have in the hood. I knew that people in my hood had like diabetes and stuff, but I didn't know it's from the stuff that we ate, the noodles, the chips, and the Kool-Aid and stuff, and not eat healthy. So just finding other ways to, eat healthier and get with the movement. Environmental-wise, there's a lot of asthma, diabetes, and cancer just because of the naval shipyard and the things we put in our bodies. Me, myself, and my grandma and sisters, we have a lot of high asthma rate.
It's not surprising that our children have asthma. I never had asthma until I moved over here. That's why I know it is environmental.
My grandma has asthma really, really bad, and to see her like struggling to breathe sometimes, to walk up and down the stairs, or like short distances, like it kills me a little bit because it really holds her back from things that she want to do. Like when she was younger, back in the day, she loved to walk.
Then all of a sudden, it's like, did you know that in the Bayview area, children are born with asthma, there is cancer, there is this. Yeah, we knew. Did you know how long it's been here?
So that really opened my eyes and made me aware of the things that I put in my body or the air that I'm breathing. Everybody else is going green, but it's taking us a little bit longer too because, our people's, lightweight kind of lacking on it. To me, going green is taking care of your body as well as your neighborhood. I'm not so green myself, but I try. So just for me trying, and if somebody else sees me trying, then I will hope it'll make them want to try and be better or do better.
So Adrina's story is very inspiring, isn't it? We're honored to work with her every day. But we wanted to share with you the strategies that enable us to work with students, usually ages 14 to 24, in San Francisco. We found the strategies that we've used to also be some of the best practices in education. So the first strategy, and it's more of a lens, is environmental literacy. As you heard Adrina talking about, we want our young people to understand not just where their food comes from, where their water comes from, how their transportation system works, the clothing they're wearing, the buildings. When they get activated, they want to understand the entire system of life that supports them on this earth. We have found that when they get connected to the Earth systems, then they get more motivated. They get inspired to share and translate that information to others. We also foster environmental literacy, not just by standing up in front of a room talking to people much like this, or even standing in front of a classroom, but we take them outside. We use project-based learning. Have any of you experienced project-based learning? Okay, we have a program in San Francisco called the Environmental Service Learning Initiative, where we've been honored to be able to hire environmental educators who represent a diverse group of educators to go into the classroom. They work one-on-one with the teachers to integrate standards-based environmental service learning curriculum. The students get to outline what's happening in the environment in their neighborhoods, and they decide what the solution should be. In the previous slide, it showed a young woman on a bike with the light bulb. Did you see the slide? She actually got to build that slide. Build that bike. She probably could help me build the slide too. These kids today are very intelligent. So for us, we empower them through environmental literacy by doing. They go out and they do. There she is. Another strategy that we use is called cultural relevancy. And for this, we mean we speak to the culture of the young people that we're working with. We meet them where they're at, but we don't stay there. By starting where they're at, they become co-creators of the experiences and the curriculum that we do. We build on what they know and what they're excited about. And trust me, by empowering your students, by meeting them where they're at, you'll also empower them to find their voice.
Another approach that we use is media, and we've heard it talked a lot about today. I had the opportunity to speak to about 550 young people from across the country just last week in New York City, and I asked them, raise your hand if you've gotten any information in the last 30 days by going to the library. And like 2 people raised their hand. And I said, well, raise your hand if you've learned anything new from reading a newspaper or a magazine. More hands came up. What about watching television? Even more hands went up. What about, have you learned anything in the last 30 days through some level of social networking, be it Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, YouTube? Every single hand in the room was raised. Clearly, that is the language of our young people. But unfortunately, some educational systems haven't truly caught up to that. Particularly when we're dealing with communities of color, it's very important because we understand that there's still a digital divide. So text messaging is a huge form of outreach for our work, as well as Facebook and other social networks. Another thing that we use in new media is we allow young people to tell our own stories, because we understand that there's a lot of brown folks doing a lot of powerful work around the concept of green. But if we're going to wait for the mainstream media to tell our stories, we're going to be waiting a long time. And if our stories are going to truly be impactful, they have to be just as engaging, just as inspiring, just as innovative and compelling as MTV and BET and all of the other mechanisms that are bombarding our young people with messages each and every day.
Another strategy that we use, we call growing community leadership. And again, we not only believe that young people are the leaders of the future, we want to empower them to step up and take leadership today. And part of that is seeing people that look like them in leadership roles. So when we can, we hire from diverse groups of artists, muralists, dancers, people that reflect their experiences and allow the young people to see how they're taking action in their communities. We also discuss the legacy of Earth stewardship that exists in all of our ancestry, even all of us in this room, so that they see that being environmental, being Earth students, Earth stewards isn't necessarily a new thing, but something that we actually, as Zakiya has said, have to reconnect to. We show Idrina's video to young people, and inevitably, they always see a piece of their stories in hers. When Zakiya and myself walk into a room and we start speaking, they look at us and they say, you know what, yes, that can be me in the future.
And lastly, and probably the most important thing that we do, is be inspiring. You know, for many communities of color, environmental issues often take a back seat because they're dealing with day-to-day survival. One of my mentors told me, Zakiya, green is a conversation that you can have when your belly is full. And for many of our communities, their bellies still aren't full. And so for us to truly inspire them, we can't come at them with the same, woe is me, the sky is falling, we're in the 11th hour of the planet, you and your whole family are going to die in the next 15 minutes, and you might as well just go to hell right now. It's not going to work. We have to be engaging. So for us, it's about inviting young people to a free, solar-powered hip-hop concert produced by young people that look like them. When they walk into the door, they're eating some organic soul food. It's kind of familiar, but not quite, but it tastes really good. There's these reusable water bottles walking around. There's some guy on the microphone. He's spitting a good rhyme. He's feeling it. And then when they listen closely, they're like, wait a minute, he's actually talking about the planet. And guess what? When you're done with this concert and you really had fun, go check out that table on the side. It's about green jobs. There's actually an opportunity for you to make some money throughout this work. So we're always framing our work not just in the problems, but in the solutions. So we've shared our stories with you. You've heard about Idrina, but this is about education, so you've got homework. Assignment number 1. Figure out how you can begin to weave your worlds together. There is a certain path, there's certain experiences that only you have been through that brought you to where you are today. How can you begin to integrate that work into the classroom and share your passion to the young people that you serve? We also shared some strategies with you, but we by no means feel that those are strategies that you immediately have to duplicate. We want to challenge you instead to come up with your own strategies that are effective to the constituents that you serve. And lastly, and most importantly, please listen to your young people. We know that as educators, we have so much to teach them, but we have even more to learn.
All those you teach, you change.
All those you change, change you.
The only lasting truth is change. You are Earthseed. Thank you.